Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Lux-Lee, the founder and CEO of Mindr, and we are so excited to come to you live this Autism Acceptance Month to talk to one of my favorite speakers of all time, the incredible Hayley Moss. Hayley is a lawyer, a writer, an artist. There is truly nothing she doesn't do, and I'm so excited for you to hear from her today. Hayley, welcome. I wondered if you could start off our 15 minutes together with a bit of an introduction to you and your background and all the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me, and welcome everyone to our live together. I think you actually covered me in a nutshell pretty well, that I feel like I am an attorney turned educator. I'm an attorney by trade, educator by choice. And most of what I do is in the autism and neurodiversity space. I am an autistic person. I was diagnosed as a child. I am very proud to be someone who is autistic. My mind just does its own thing. I think differently and have a different experience of the world because of it. And honestly, I don't know what it's like to be any other way. So I'm honestly someone who I feel like is at worst at peace with it, and at best extremely proud.
Well, I'm extremely proud to know you. And I wondered if you could tell us a little about this month. You know, it must be an odd time because it's a time of celebration and it's wonderful to have so much attention on this topic. At the same time, I know you're pulled in many directions. Suddenly, there's this influx of conversations in this space. How do you feel about Autism Acceptance Month? What does it mean to you? And what do you hope that people in the modern workplace will take out of this month?
Autism Acceptance Month is actually this really strange thing, I think, for autistic people. And mostly because, one, it wasn't started by autistic people. And a lot of people you might also hear describe it as Awareness Month. I purposely use acceptance because I think most people are aware in this kind of cocktail party awareness where they might go, oh, yeah, I know about that. Or, oh, I know someone who is on the autism spectrum. And that's fantastic. But I think there's also a bridge that we need to start kind of closing on this between awareness and then acceptance, because we don't have a lot of understanding in the middle of that. So a lot of people don't realize what autism is or is not. And also that autistic people are here. A lot of us are not perpetual children. A lot of us are indeed adults at this point. And also that we are deserving of the same awareness and understanding. I do wish that these conversations happened all year long, of course. I'm glad that people do want to do better and they genuinely do seem interested and care, but I really do want to see these efforts continue year long. Just like when we talk about other marginalized groups. So when we talk about things like mental health, that we don't just talk about mental health during May, or we don't just talk about LGBTQ rights and pride during Pride Month, that we have these conversations all year long, especially because there is a social justice component and that autistic people are part of the broader neurodiversity movement and also disability rights and disability justice. So realizing that we're all together and this is something that isn't just about one way of being human, I think that's really important. And also for a lot of us, because we do get pulled in different directions, like you said, that we also need to build in time to take care of ourselves and enjoy life and also celebrate autistic joy rather than just autistic struggle, and try to bring awareness, quote unquote, or shine a light on that, as so many people often try to do, because everyone wants to know about everything that's hard for me. And I'm always like, let's talk about the things that autistic people are really good at and that we enjoy and things that are fun, because we don't always get to genuinely celebrate. So when we celebrate acceptance, I hope that also is part of that conversation.
Absolutely. And, you know, you said there you hope that these are conversations people have all year round. And you already gave us one really important topic for those conversations, which is all the powerful things about the experience of autism and the joy of autism, as you say. What else do you hope will happen in these conversations all year round? What conversations should people be striving to have in the workplace during the course of the year on this topic?
Oh my gosh. I feel like that is a huge thing to unpack, especially because a lot of conversations that we start with autism in mind can end up benefiting all of us at work. But something that I really want to do actually is bring a little bit more of multiply marginalized autistic people to the forefront, and especially people who also have intellectual disabilities or who are non-speakers, because autism really does cover such an array of different experiences. Not everybody is super verbal, or not everyone looks and sounds like me. And I think that's really important. And a lot of times people are like, well, your story is an exception. I'm like, it's not an exception because of how autism presents so much as the amount of bias that we have and we face, all this concept of ableism. And ableism also especially impacts people who are also autistic with intellectual disabilities, or who might be non-speakers or autistic people of color, that we really have to make sure that we're intersectional in this conversation. And especially for our folks who do also have intellectual disabilities or more impacts on language, that not speaking or is not the same as nothing to say, and not understanding something right now or never does not, like, not now does not mean never, essentially. I think that's some stuff that I want us to really think about. But as far as how we can make work more accepting, I love that we are probably more flexible than we've ever been in so many ways. And I love when we're able to communicate more directly. I truly appreciate it because I often do miss a lot of neurotypical social cues. A lot of how I view socializing is a lot like speaking a second language. That even though I'm very fluent in neurotypical language, I will always sound like I have an accent, or I will always miss things that get lost in translation no matter how hard I try. So that directness makes it a little bit easier. And I also want us to just be more empathetic. And I always go back to kind of bilingualism as my example, because it does feel a lot like being bilingual in terms of how my brain works. It's kind of switching on those different types of communication very regularly. And oftentimes, autistic people are expected to just do a better job at speaking the neurotypical social language. But at the same time, neurotypical people aren't making that same effort to understand the neurodivergent and autistic social languages. So I live in Miami, which is a primarily bilingual city. And a lot of the times I interact with people who are initially Spanish speakers as their first language, and their English isn't always perfect. And they'll say something like, I'm sorry, my English isn't very good. And instead I say, I'm sorry, my Spanish isn't as good as it could be, because it shouldn't just fall on them to have to constantly be learning this and adapting to this language that they might not speak. And even if they do, it's never going to be perfect. So I feel like that's something that would be a great form of acceptance, is having that empathy, just like we do, or we try to extend that grace with second language learners, for instance, because how we communicate based on social and cultural norms is, in a sense, a type of brain bilingualism almost.
And, I think there's something so powerful there as well about tackling the base assumptions that are driving the way in which people are communicating. So assuming that English will be the language, or assuming that folks will communicate or interact in a certain way, really excludes so many of those opportunities for empathy and for collaboration and inclusion. And something I've had the good fortune to hear you speak. We've worked together on events at a couple of different organizations now. And you said something at one of those events that has truly changed the way that I think about communicating in a team, which was, you said, it's so important for leaders to create moments for people to share how they work best and how they bring their best, and the right infrastructure for them to succeed. And that's something that I quote you on very often now, at large, when on events on all topics, because I think that's such powerful training in leading with empathy, in leading with inclusion. I wonder, what other ideas do you have, or strategies do you recommend for managers who are really looking to foster that inclusive environment, in addition to creating space for people to set out, these are the ways in which I communicate the best, and the ways that, we're going to get the best out of each other in this working relationship?
I love that as well. And that was probably what I would have suggested if you didn't bring it up. And if you don't know how to do that and you were thinking, oh, this sounds wonderful, what I would do is have everyone come up with 3 different bullet points about how they work best, or how to work with them. So for me, that might be something like, I am anxious when people call me. I do not do great in mornings. Or please send me reminders if you don't hear from me in about 2 days or so, because usually that means it didn't register to me as being important. So there's all sorts of ways that we're able to communicate better with each other, and then we can adapt and accommodate based on that. I do think with managers, though, something that I wish we did better is when people do disclose that they are autistic or neurodivergent or disabled, because we honestly don't really know how to act. So if you are a manager and somebody shares this type of information with you, usually it's up to you to figure out why this is being shared with you. Is this being shared because this person is trying to be their authentic self? Is it because they needed accommodation? Or is it because they're like, this is a fun fact about me that I want you to know? I usually do not fall into the fun fact thing because I think there are far more interesting things about me than the fact I am autistic. And I don't have any cool party tricks to share, contrary to the stereotype. Is there's a stereotype about us having like savant skills and stuff. So people always think that you have a cool party trick up your sleeve. But I am not sharing because I have a party trick or it's a fun fact. So much as I'm saying I need support, or I just want to bring my full self and make you aware in case anything goes wrong or I miss something socially, kind of this like by the way type thing. But when someone is disclosing to you, I want you to try to figure out the intention as best you can. And chances are someone will let you know, like, I need help with X, or I just wanted you to know. So figure out that intention while you're listening and just listen. Try to avoid immediately reacting with like an, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Please don't feel sorry for me. Never feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me, so neither should you. And what I want people to do is sometimes ask a question like, how can I be more supportive? How can I support you? It's something people don't do with me. And every time I do, I'm always taken aback because it shows that you're willing to learn and you're willing to listen. And even if you don't have the answers right away, that's okay. Just admit it and try to find them if you can, whether it's through someone in human resources or continuing to expand your knowledge of autism and neurodiversity. And also ask who else might know because you don't want to inadvertently out someone if they don't feel ready or comfortable with that.
Right. Those are such important points. And that question, how can I support you, is so simple and so meaningful. Like, I think can get us all so far. And as you say, what we learn from discussing this in the context of autism and neurodiversity is true across the entire board, right? So skilling up in this sense is so critical for every leader, whether or not they have somebody with autism on their team. We all should be having these conversations, and the reality is we often may not know.
Exactly. And that's the really cool thing about when we do disability inclusion more broadly, is if we design and come up with processes and accessibility at the forefront, we all end up benefiting, not just the autistic or disabled people, but all of us move up from it. That's the really cool thing about accessibility as well, is that when we do it with the most marginalized people in mind, we all somehow manage to benefit.
That's so true. And to go back to something you were saying previously about ensuring we're having more of these celebrations, so talking more about the power of this experience and all of the joy within it, what do you want people to know about the joy of this experience for you?
For me, I really want people to know that there's more than one way to be autistic. I also love that there's usually a focus on everything that I struggle with because everyone wants to know, like, okay, autism is not an easy disability. I'm like, yeah, it's not. There's plenty of things in my life that are actually disabling and super difficult. And I either would like to do better at adapting or also just not have to deal with because sometimes there's societal barriers, but more instead of focusing on the pain. And I think this happens with a lot of other marginalized groups too, is that there's a focus on what's hard for you, your struggle, your pain, the group of people like you in their struggle and their pain. But when we talk about the joy, even the fact that maybe the things that I'm interested in, I'm really, really passionate about, and I could tell you everything there is. Or that when my body stims, because I know that stimming is something that's seen as sometimes it's highly stigmatized, is that you might be like flapping your hands, or you might be rocking back and forth, like all of these types of things, or you might be fidgeting a lot, that a lot of the times it makes me feel calm, or it helps regulate my focus or attention, or in some cases when my hands are flappy and really excited, that it is a full body joy, that I feel everything. My body performs my feelings. And most people will never experience that. And I wish that you knew how amazing it is when your body, every fiber of your being, can feel your feelings in that intensity. And it's such a beautiful experience that I have no other words to describe it really. And I think when we celebrate our joy and the things that make us happy and our passions, and whether they lead to careers or they're just hobbies and interests that we just really, really love, that we realize that just because it's different doesn't mean it's better or it's worse. It's just a different way of being human, but it's still human nonetheless.
Words to live by. Hayley, thank you so much for taking these 15 minutes to chat with us. I think just any moment with you opens my eyes every time. I learn so much from you on any given topic, and we've talked about so many topics, but it's great to have your thoughts on this one here today. Thank you for spending the time with us. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and to everyone tuning in, thanks for being with us live on LinkedIn. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.